Welcome to Breadcrumbs. This is the prophetic journal of a girl who's more than happy to eat the crumbs off the master's table. If you're like me, then listen and be encouraged that even in the whispers and mere shadows, our God still speaks, and he has a lot to say. I'm sitting here recording this in a lot of discomfort because my back, yet again, has betrayed me. I can't really stand up straight, but I also can't sit for any length of time before the pain really sets in. This particular season of learning what it is to live through cycles of debilitating pain is really new to me, and I have heard him tell me with increasing clarity that this is a very particular training ground for me, specifically in the realm of joy and peace. If I can be literally stopped in my tracks and forced to surrender all my plans for the day because my body simply will not tolerate it, and rather than railing against this, being swept away by a sense of being left behind or missing out on things, being wrapped up in frustration and self-pity, if instead I immediately tuck myself in like a little child into his cupped palm and I say, "Okay, Abba, I'll rest with you. Let's just rest together. What have I not been hearing? Is there anything that you have been trying to say to me that I was too busy to hear? Have you missed my company? Here I am." I think this is the 4th or 5th cycle of pain that I've been in since last January, and with every passing cycle of forced rest, I find that I am submitting more and more quickly to the very clear sense that at times like these, he's just scooping me in, almost coveting time with me and making a way for it. He's literally clearing my schedule. Leading up to this latest rest period, he has sent me dream after dream after dream, after vision after vision after vision, regarding the kind of leadership that will be needed in this next season. And the characteristic or quality that keeps rising up to the very surface is joy. I looked up the leadership traits that are sought for right now in 2023, and here are the kinds of things that are listed: effective communication, accountability and responsibility, long-term thinking, self-motivation, confidence, people orientation, and emotional stability. As you can see, joy did not make the list. It is a trait deeply undervalued. One of the first words I ever got over me from somebody prophetic was something to the effect of, "I hear the Father laughing over you." It's a great big belly laugh. He is just so delighted with the things you get up to, with your quirky, idiosyncratic ways of being. He laughs over you. And that's been a theme ever since. The words I get from other prophets, as I've mentioned before, they're pretty limited. I don't run in a pack with many prophetic people, but every time I do, they all say the same thing. Something about the humor, the laughter, the joy that the Father, Son, and Spirit have over me. And I know that it's because it's something that he has wanted to cultivate after having been taught for 40 years that the God of the heavens is awfully serious and that it's sacrilegious to think otherwise. It's like he's been making up for lost time, teaching me about this really important side of him. As far as I understand it, each prophetic movement over the past 100 years or so has yielded a fresh and deepened understanding of a particular characteristic of God. It seems to me that we are about to learn about his justice and his judgment, but that goes hand in hand with his joy and his delight. In Psalm 2, the Bible says, "He who sits enthroned in the heavens laughs." He laughs at the nations that have the audacity to think that they can best him, that they can force prophecy or stop it from coming to pass. He laughs because they play at being God. And so, why can't we? Why can't we share in the laughter of our God, who isn't concerned about even the most maniacal and clever plan of the enemy? Why shouldn't we laugh too? Joy should be our hallmark posture when the enemy is doing his worst. That would certainly get the world's attention. It would certainly add to our peculiarity as a people. This reminds me of how I've been barking out laughs all day today. When the pain spikes, it's almost like my war cry. In the face of my pain, I'm choosing to laugh. And as my little one watches me, She's learning that her mama laughs in the face of pain. Don't get me wrong, she's seen my tears as well. There's a place for that. But this is counterbalanced with a deep spark of joy and humor inside me, that nothing is wasted, that my Abba knows what he's doing. If the earth has descended into depths of darkness and deception like never before, then the fact that there's a pile of his kids walking the earth that are still laughing, that are still at peace, still trusting him, still sleeping deeply and soundly at night, still laughing around the table with their children, still, like the Proverbs 31 woman, laughing at the days ahead as winter sets in, colder, darker. Laughter. How could that not delight him? A week ago, I dreamed about a night swim in the ocean. The stars were out, the water was dark, and I led a group of people into the water for a swim. I led them out in pairs, very aware that it was a training exercise, and very aware that it was one that I was running purely on faith, because I had not yet experienced the things that I was training them to do. I told them to swim together for as long as it took, and as deep as it took, to reach the place where the water would hold them up. We started to swim, and I remember being very aware of where each of the swimmers were and how they were progressing. I remember a pang of loss and disappointment as some of them peeled off and headed back to shore. But I also remember the moment I found what it was I was looking for. As my arms pulled through the water, my fingers felt the texture of the water change. It began to thicken until I was able to actually pull it and grasp it in my hands. I called out to the others, saying, "Can you feel it?" And soon I became aware that there was a white sheet or cloth submerged a few feet under the water, and that it was the thing that was holding us up. Somehow it was the thing that we had needed to reach, and now that we'd made it there, it was going to hold us up above the water so we could rest. Everything about it reminded me of Peter. It reminded me of the white sheet that he was shown, full of foods that had been forbidden to him his whole life, and how by faith he had to accept the new thing, even though that was a really difficult thing to do. And of course it made me think of him taking those first steps out onto the water. He too was being directed to learn how to get to the place where the water would hold him up. All of it had to do with faith, with a childlike trust that the Lord is always leading us into good things. Even though the sky around us is dark, the waves are frothing, the thing in front of us is totally alien, foreign, new, offensive even. Peter, white sheets, water walking, it's where we are right now. There are lessons he's trying to teach us in the dark. Isaiah 9, the people who walk in spiritual darkness will see a great light. Those who live in the dark land, the light will shine on them. You, O God, will increase the nation. You will multiply their joy. They will rejoice before you like the joy and jubilation of the harvest, as men rejoice when they divide the spoils of war. Joy in the darkness, light in the darkness. That is where we're at. That is who we're called to be. Last night I had my fourth dream about the kind of leadership he's looking for in these days. This is what I saw. I saw the unfurling of a strand of northern lights flickering down towards the earth, and on it rode a man. He touched down among a group of people, and there was laughter bubbling out of him. A grin spread across his face. He was a small man, nothing to look at. He held a kind of power. The people around him moved as though he was orchestrating and mobilizing them. They danced around him, totally at ease and moving in synchronicity like a dance. There were a few very funny things about this vision. One is that I immediately heard the name Tom Bombadil. Tom Bombadil has to be the most enigmatic character in The Lord of the Rings. We aren't told much about him, but we're given the sense that he has powers that are kind of hidden and understated, but they're immense. My earliest impression of him, when my dad read that story to me as a child, I remember thinking he had that sparkle in his eye that you see often in youngest children. Carefree and confidently joyful. Old Tom Bombadil is a merry fellow. Bright blue his jacket is. His boots are yellow. None has ever caught him yet. For Tom, he is the master. His songs are stronger songs, and his feet are faster. In the book, he is completely immune to the allure of the ring and of its power. He's a creature that knows his boundaries and sticks to them. I hear the Lord saying that the leadership trait that he's looking for, this confident joy, it's a safeguard against the allure of the power being offered by the enemy. To live out of a place of joy is to live within the bounds of contentment, content with the lot that we've been given, content with the role we've been asked to play. There's nothing the enemy could offer us that we'd say yes to because we're so cheerfully enamored with what we've already been given. Here's a fun tidbit. Please feel free to use it as evidence of God's good humor. In this vision, this merry little man, I could see he had invisible donkey ears. As always, visions are so strange. But it did the trick for me because I knew that I was supposed to make a connection back to the character Nick Bottom from Shakespeare's A Midsummer Night's Dream. In that particular Shakespeare play, it was Nick Bottom who provides the comic relief throughout the entire play. Joy, laughter, not taking yourself so seriously. You remember how Jesus said, don't go and sit yourself at the head of the table, because then you'll have to endure the shame of being asked to step down and move to the bottom. Sit yourself at the bottom of the table, because then, who knows, maybe you'll feel a tap on your shoulder, a hand will be extended, and you'll be escorted all the way up to the head of the table. I think the leaders of the next season are going to be those who are so wrapped up in the joy of getting to know their table mates on their left and their right that they aren't even noticing where they're sitting. They don't care what position they find themselves in. They're just happy to be at the table. They're feasting on the fellowship all around them, quick to laugh, slow to compare. This small man was also wearing an ornate mask. It kind of reminded me of a costume party. It was sparkly, colorful, and I knew it represented a kind of hiddenness. I knew it meant that we are not going to be able to predict who the leaders are going to be in the next season. How could we predict it if we keep looking at the wrong leadership traits? Just like the people who quickly said yes to tall, handsome Saul, but would absolutely have bypassed a young shepherd boy. We're looking at the wrong character traits. We're looking through the world's eyes. The last thing that was communicated through this vision was one word: Zephyr. In Greek mythology, Zephyr is one of the 4 winds of the earth. The Zephyr or Zephyrus represented the west wind. He was known as the soft, gentle wind. This immediately aligned with the sense I was getting over the flavor of leadership I was seeing, both in this vision and a few others I've had even in the past 2 weeks. In all of these visions, a leader was positioned in the center of a group of people, and all of them were small in stature, with their mouths thrown back in a laugh. They were the gentle breeze that was both attracting people to them, but also fueling movement and change in a subtle way, not a heavy touch at all. 2 weeks ago, as I mentioned, I was away on a ministry trip in Edmonton. A couple came to me for a prophetic word, and as I prayed over the young man, my right hand came up and made a movement down the center of his chest, along his sternum. And I said, I believe the Lord is calling you to be the main thing in the days ahead. The melody, while those all around you serve as the harmonizing to your leadership. But you will be the main thing. And he started to weep and weep and weep. And the Lord continued to speak. I heard myself saying, you do not feel worthy, do you? This boy represents the leaders of the next season. They will be those entirely unaccustomed to being the main thing. The word Zephyr, it does appear in the Bible, but it doesn't mean gentle breeze. It actually means scroll. And I find that that fits quite well, because didn't he just let me serve as a kind of scroll reader over a boy who didn't realize that his Zephyr was calling out of him the role of Zephyr? The story that Abba has written of him is one of being a gentle breeze, a soft wind of movement and change in the lives of many. We are about to see a new thing. I have seen the Lord crowning the most unwell and hardened street youths on the streets of my city. I've seen him crowning them in the spirit, wrapping them in a robe and calling them elders. He's shown me a long line of horses, yoked together 2 by 2, all of them tall, broad, regal, unflinching, while a single pony is joined to their rank. This little horse isn't made up of one solid color, but is dappled, and it's hopping from foot to foot and glancing up and around at all of its teammates, full of a restless, youthful, innocent, and cheerful energy. And I felt the Lord's pleasure over that little horse. Gone will be the days of self-appointed leaders, sitting themselves somberly upon their thrones, dispassionately meting out judgments and ruling as one above and apart from the people. The days are upon us where it will be ones rising up from among us, the least expected ones, who exude such cheer, such lightness, effervescence of spirit that we're drawn to them. It won't matter what they look like. It won't matter where they came from. Our spirits will be pulled towards them because in a time of increasing darkness, they will be so radiant, their joy so infectious. The Holy Spirit is many things. One of the ways he's depicted is as a wind. These will be the days where, through these chosen ones, through these unlikely ones, he will flow as the most enticing and alluring breeze, a gentle call in a time of harshness and violence and fear. We will learn what it is to be a people of joy and hope, of what it is to be buoyed up by the hidden power of joy and hope that will not and does not disappoint, because God has poured out his love into our hearts through the Holy Spirit whom he has given us. There's one other thing that has featured over and over in the past 2 weeks worth of visions, and it's been pictures of huge anchors on thick chains. Hebrews 6:19 makes really clear how this imagery fits with everything that he's been showing me. It is impossible for God to lie. We who have fled to him for refuge would have strong encouragement and indwelling strength to hold tightly to the hope set before us. This hope we have, it's an anchor of the soul. It cannot break down under whatever pressure bears upon it. It is a safe and steadfast hope that enters within the veil of the heavenly temple, that most holy place in which the very presence of God dwells, where Jesus has entered in advance as a forerunner for us. We should be a deeply anchored people. We have every reason to be, and it's from that anchoring of hope that the joy comes. If you want to interact with any of these episodes, if the Lord has spoken to you about similar things, then I really want to hear about it. This podcast has an Instagram account over at Mildly Prophetic. I'll put that in the show notes. If you hop over there, you can share the things you've seen and heard. You can ask me questions. Basically, you can add your breadcrumbs to mine. And if we gather them all up, then what a feast it'll be.